Yes, guys, welcome to... Hello. Are we live? We are. Sorry, that was
live. Yeah.
completely thrown by that, Mark. It must be your arrival. Welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. Do you know what? I was watching YouTube rather than StreamYard. Completely thrown by it. But guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. I'm Jamie Matici. I'm joined by the FPL GOAT himself, the guy that actually made me fall in love. I don't think I've ever told you this, Mark. Fall in love with FPL. Mark Sutherns.
Hello, how are you, Johnny? I'm good. Yeah, I've never turned down a chat for a beer and a chat about FPL with one of my besties, so it's good to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, mate, I'm very well. Yeah, it was back when the FPL show, I guess, first started. The first season of the FPL show, you were on it, right? You were the only guest for a couple of years. Yeah. So it was then because I think I used to watch before the FPL show. And let us know in the chat if you ever used to watch the FPL show. What, 5-6 years ago? Mark used to do a Facebook Live with Jules and then go into the studio. Was it after? Did you do half an hour live? And
we did a half an hour live, then the Facebook Live, then about an hour later we started filming. Yeah.
See, we couldn't watch it live in the UK, so I relied on those Facebook sessions.
Do you remember that tan jacket I wore for the first episode? Oh, God, there's somewhere on the internet that lives. God.
Yeah. There's a picture of you wearing it and then me wearing a similar sort of coloured jacket, and so the photos are sort of side by side, aren't they?
Yeah, I wish I never want my photos side by side by you. This is bad enough. It's not good for my own ego, that isn't. But yeah, that tan jacket, dear me, that was retired after one show. So
yeah. We got some love in the chat. Sachin says, Sir Mark. Tiffany says, so hey guys. Rob is in this evening. Evening, gents. Kev says, 2 goats. Adam says you should bring it back, the FPL show. So yeah, guys, thank you for all the love in the chat. Do get your questions in at some point tonight. We will try and get to them. Tonight's chat is mainly going to be focused around forwards. But as always, we will have a look at that community team, the team that you guys have been building, and we'll do a poll or two to see if we want to make any changes. We'll get Mark's thoughts on that team, but obviously always have a steer on fixtures. Before we chat forwards, Mark, how's your drafting been? Have you been kind of drafting for a few weeks now? How many versions are you on? How settled do you feel?
Yeah, I tried to be a little bit hands-off so far. Normally by now my phone is absolutely full of screenshots. It's not so far, which is nice. I don't feel like it's been that intense. I picked a team. I did the auto select team like everybody does, and then I gave it a bit of thought and picked a team which I thought was decent for the fixtures, and then I've revisited a couple of times. I'm trying to avoid all the drafts on Twitter because I just think last season I let that influence me quite negatively in that everyone had Jesus and Salah, and I then deliberately went against that. I backed Son and Kane, and that didn't help me because Jesus and Salah started the season well, and Son, as we know, had a miserable season. And Kane was great, but he was like, not big scores, was it? It was like a consistency. So I've consciously stayed away from looking at too many drafts, basically, and trying to not be influenced by it.
Wise move. I try and do the same, and sometimes, like you, I'll go the other way. If I'm spending too long on Twitter looking at too many drafts, I look at it and go, I don't want to go this direction of the template because I kind of want to just prove a point. And it's like you can sometimes then go and make a silly decision by trying to go too much the other way. So I love the approach you and Az are having this season, in a pre-season of kind of fairly focused. Oh, is it just me? Where's Mark gone? It is just me. You guys are still with me in the chat, right? Love it.
Oh, that's me. I've got problems with my cam. So if the cam just freezes, I think we're gonna have to just settle on a still image, I'm afraid, because I don't seem to be able to fix it, I'm afraid, Johnny. Sorry about this.
All good. If you go again, we'll settle on the still image. Mate, it is a pleasure to have you on this evening. Even if we have to cope with just audio, I'll take it. But yeah, guys, Dean is going to be back on Friday. He's actually going to be in the chat tonight. He's in San Diego and he's on childcare duties. So he thought best not to stream. But he has been streaming whilst on holiday. But yeah, Black Boss issues transferred across to CGA, says FPL and songs. Yeah, maybe you're right there. So, Mark, before we look at forwards, how set do you feel on formation? Are you ruling out a kind of 3-4-3, or do you think that is a direction that you could be swayed on?
No, I was ruling it out, but I think that a few things are happening in the last 48 hours in terms of Darwin beginning to emerge as a regular starter, possibly under Klopp, which would change a lot. And obviously, in Nkunku's form pre-season, can't read too much into the goals and performances, but he is the couple of the goals he scored have been poachers' goals, playing in the central attacking role, and he's got the pedigree. And I think when his price came out, a lot of people were talking about him being a potential bargain and underpriced. So I was aware of him already, and what I've seen so far has obviously impressed. Chelsea have impressed as well. So getting some Chelsea coverage, perhaps even from game week 1, is the way to go. So I think Darwin is the factor low, and then Kane, if he departs, that will affect a lot of things as well, because people will obviously jump on Richarlison, who's a midfielder, but that might shift people back to playing 5 midfielders. But at the moment, I'm kind of, I'm still with the 3-5-2, but very much conscious that 3-4-3 could be coming into vogue.
Yeah, it's definitely tempting me as well. Definitely tempting me. And yeah, we'll talk more about Darwin and Nkunku, and then maybe some of those cheaper third forward assets like the likes of João Pedro as well. Just on Nkunku, did you see the Chelsea highlights from yesterday? I was really disappointed we didn't see them starting with Jackson and Nkunku, because the first couple of games they didn't play together. Then game 3, I think they got like maybe 45 minutes together, and Nkunku as the 10, Jackson as the 9. And knowing that's what most of us expect Chelsea to go into game week 1, I've thought against Fulham, Poch will do that, but he didn't. He played Nkunku, I think, first half and Jackson the second. But I'm really hoping that's the partnership we see. And if it is, it feels really explosive. Like they're both scoring goals. They seem to be connecting quite nicely. And it doesn't really feel like there's any good options up top for Chelsea outside of those two. So surely it's Jackson 9 and Nkunku 10. Is that what you're thinking?
Possibly. I mean, they've got to get Mudryk, maybe Sterling's got to start, you would have thought as well. I guess it's at the moment, the options they got suggest that they will play a 10 behind a 9, but they're going to buy a defender in the next 24 hours, it seems. They haven't stopped spending, have they? So I think we've got to reserve judgment until that final week. And but at the moment, Jackson and Nkunku are presenting options to us. I guess the issue is, do you go game week 1 for the Liverpool game, or do you go Jesus and then put a transfer in game week 2 or 3 and move to Chelsea then? The fixtures certainly pick up for Chelsea from game week 3. So that would be the popular move. But Darwin is the X factor, because obviously the Bournemouth fixture in game week 2. So I think Jesus is still going to remain popular because it's easy to move off him to one of those players that we just mentioned. But the Chelsea pairing are exciting, aren't they? I mean, that's what we want. Chelsea back on the radar, giving us FBL options.
Yeah. I wonder if game week 3, if we see Mudryk and Sterling playing consistently, like consistent starts, I think it'll be Sterling right, Mudryk left. Then come game week 3, you might be at, 6.5 million for Mudryk, 7 million for Sterling. If they start game week 1 and 2 well, and we know they're nailed, that could be the route to the Chelsea attack, rather than the striker spot where you've got to spend 7 or 7.5. So that will be definitely one to monitor. Mudryk has looked all right. I don't think he played yesterday, but in the game before that, or maybe it was the game before that, he scored a brilliant goal. He's looking confident, and I just wonder if we'll see a player there now under Poch. But let's move on and talk forwards. So next up, we have got tips and chips. There we go. So let's start by looking at some of the 7 to 8 million forwards. So kind of mid price bracket. I mean, there isn't really any forwards above this price bracket other than Haaland and Kane. I think from Jesus to Kane, I don't think there's anyone in between. So first question to you, Mark, before we look at the data and the fixtures, let's start this conversation by picking maybe who we would go for if we were to pick one of these guys, and then finish the conversation with, are we swayed by a second one? So do we both have Jesus in our teams?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, isn't it? But just because of the fixture. I mean, I'm a Forest fan, and I don't think that we're going to be very well prepared going into that fixture. So he just stands out as, he wouldn't be my first choice Arsenal attacker by any means, or even my second, or maybe even not even my third. No. But he is the only striker available for Arsenal in the game, and he allows you to move off him quite easily to one of those others on the screen.
Yeah, he does. He does. The fact he's at the top of that price bracket definitely helps our thinking. Arsenal attack, Forest first game, and then Fulham third, both at home. And then Palace away maybe is a little bit more tricky than perhaps some give it credit for. But These fixtures are the reason why I want to go triple Arsenal attack. So I'm currently on Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus, but Jesus does feel like the weakest of the three for me. I genuinely would go, and most don't have him. I think he's 14% owned. I think I'd go Martinelli over Jesus, but we do know Arteta will give him the minutes. He will Martinelli too. But the numbers from last season, when you look at the per 90 numbers, that's pretty healthy, isn't it? 0.61.
Yeah, it's surprising. His XG is always high. It always was for City, wasn't it? It's his conversion rate, which is the concern. I think, last season his conversion rate was decent at 14%, which, if you look over the season, my memory of Jesus is he still missed a lot of chances. Yeah. And yet he come out with a pretty healthy conversion, as we said. So, yeah, I want to give him another chance. I didn't get on him last season from the start, and he started the season well. And then he kind of dipped into what I thought he would be a striker who would drift outside the box, get involved in a lot of link-up play, and not be in the box when Arsenal were looking at firing crosses in. Yeah. And I think that's how it could be again. But I guess Havertz is there to kind of maybe exchange. I think Havertz, Jesus, and Martinelli will be the trio that will work and it'll be very fluid between the three of them, and they'll all take time getting into the box. So I think Jesus, in a way, I don't think he's going to outscore Martinelli in terms of goals and assists, but he's going to be in the mix with those three and contributing. It's just whether or not those points arrive in those first three games.
Yeah, we're all chasing the fixture so hard. I captained Jesus game week 38, so I feel like my last FPL memory is such a strong one of him. But yeah, I think I'm fairly set there. His ownership's high for a reason, I guess. The other two on the top tier, Wilson, that's like, we know his numbers are great. What do you think of Newcastle this season? Because I think they might. I can't see Newcastle having the season they had last year. I don't think they'll finish top four. I think European football plus first season with kind of the new look team under Eddie Howe was kind of that little bit of a shock value that you sometimes get with newly promoted teams. And I'm not saying Newcastle newly promoted, of course, but similar effect. This Newcastle team now, we know a little bit more about. Not much has changed. The fixtures are hard to start the season, and then the congestion will build with a thin squad for Champions League. Have you looked at someone like Wilson?
Not yet. I mean, I think at this stage in the season, we haven't got a lot to go on other than last season's data, the preseason, and of course the fixtures. And the fixtures for me are the dominant factor that influences my picks. Yeah. And those fixtures just suggest to me, I mean, Villa are probably, they're going to threaten the top six this season. That's going to be a very tough opening for Newcastle. City, the hardest away game you can have. And arguably Liverpool at home, one of the hardest home games you can have, because Liverpool are going to be a big threat on the break. So, yeah, I think Liverpool will give him room. He'll get chances in that game. Villa and City, I'm not sure how many shots on goal he'll get in those two games. So those fixtures just make us overlook Wilson at this point. Is that a mistake? I don't think so. I think it's the right thing to do. And then Wilson, like Watkins, like Nkunku and Jackson, they really come into the equation from game week 4 onwards.
Yeah, those Watkins fixtures, though, I wonder with a team like Aston Villa, and we've seen under Emery, when he plays tricky games where he's got to rely more on counter-attacking, especially away from home, actually plays into Watkins' hands. And Diaby, for example, is a player I've been looking at quite closely, thinking, is he one of the go-to 6.5 million mids? I know we're all looking at Matoma and Mbomo, but I think Diaby's had 2 in 2 pre-season. The Villa fixtures, I don't mind. I think that Newcastle fixture on the opening day, I think Villa get quite a few chances in that. And Newcastle pre-season have been defending pretty poorly as well.
Yeah, Watkins, there's no doubt. I mean, I think, like I said, I think Villa will push the top 6. And I think that we'll want to get on one of their attackers. And Watkins is the most reliable starter. He could be on penalties, depends if Tielemans gets them. I imagine he'll keep them, but initially at least. But he is, I wouldn't say he's their talisman, because I think that role is still up for grabs. And I think Diaby will be definitely in the running there when it comes to that. I think he was involved in 49% of Villa's goals when on the pitch, though, Watkins. That's a lot, right? So Villa are going to have a good season. Watkins is going to prosper again. I think it's 15 goals, 8 assists. If he matches that again, he's going to be worth that price. But it's, yeah, you're right. The first fixture puts us off, but should it? Because Everton and Burnley are good fixtures, and I think he'll get chances in all 3 games. Again, though, it's easy to go Jesus and then move off, isn't it, and go to Watkins from that point on.
Yeah, that's certainly what I'll be looking at. All these guys are up for grabs come game week 3-4 for me. But to start with Jesus makes sense. And I don't think I can accommodate 2 of them. The one that tempts me the most, though, is Darwin. Did you own Darwin last season at all?
Never. And I kind of promised myself that I would get him because he looks such a fun player to have.
Yeah.
He's very much the kind of player I normally gravitate towards, like high ceiling,
big chance,
very exciting. Yeah. Incredibly frustrating, wasn't he? But he had XGI non-penalty of 0.79, which was, I think, third behind Wilson and Davin and Haaland last season. He only got how many starts did he got? He got 19 starts. It's actually quite surprising. Yeah, 19 starts overall, 9 goals, 5 assists. Everything pre-season is pointing to the fact that Klopp is looking to make it work with him in that central role. The fact that Jota played left the other night and Darwin kept the role down the middle. He started every friendly with Salah so far, hasn't he? So these next 2 matches, I think, are vital. If he starts both of those, I think he's really hard to resist.
Yeah, I think it's something like 4 goals, 1 assist pre-season. They've scored 4 in each of their 3 games, Liverpool pre-season. Darwin also got the number 9 shirt.
Yeah.
And Hakpo didn't. And I thought there was a good chance Hakpo was going to get the 9 shirt. And I did a bit of research to see if Hakpo's ever worn 18, because that's the number I think he has at Liverpool. And from what I can tell, he's never worn 18 before Liverpool. So he doesn't seem married to the number. So knowing 9 was up for grabs, you would have thought both Hakpo and Darwin both wanted it. And maybe that was telling. And then off the back of that announcement, we've seen the minutes. And Hakpo at times has had to play midfield 3, but often just off the bench. And we all thought Hakpo was sort of ready-made Bobby Firmino replacement because he can come deep and play a bit. But maybe Jurgen Klopp wants to go a little bit back to that kind of rock star route 1 in behind. And Darwin gives you that. Darwin gives you loads of fun and loads of chaos. It does look good. I'm definitely tempted by him. And Crystal Palace on the opening day, I guess, isn't a gimme, but Bournemouth game week 2 is for all of us not going Salah or Trent. You think, oh, if I am looking at a Liverpool player, maybe to try and cover those points game week 2, Darwin could be loads of fun. Let us know in the chat if any of you guys are sold on Darwin. Panther King says either going to explode or fall completely flat. And that's kind of what we saw last season at times. I jumped on him, I think, game week 2 or 3 last season, Mark. Like, I saw did he play in the Community Shield? And then maybe game week 1, and he was so good. And then I think game week 2, I bought him in, he got sent off. And I think he hit the post, missed a big chance. And it was always a roller coaster owning Darwin, but he'll definitely earn FPL managers some good points. I'm surprised when 19 starts because he must have been suspended and injured for about 10 games. So you take that out of the equation. He was starting, 2 and 3 that he was available for. Yeah,
really surprising. And shot in the box, 3.5 per 90, second only to Haaland. So, in terms of volume of shots, he ran Haaland very close. Conversion rate of 10%, though, 10.7, which is, actually a bit higher than I expected because the narrative on him last season, he was missing chance after chance, wasn't he? I think it's the minutes. It's not so much the form pre-season that's a factor. It's the minutes for me. The fact that he's starting the game, that he was given the 9 shirt, and I think with Trent playing the 6 or the inverted fullback, which it looks like he's going to, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Klopp does want to get Salah and Darwin in behind with Trent feeding balls through. Yeah. And the new midfielders that they got. I think it's a new way of playing for Liverpool and Klopp, and I think Darwin's very much integral to that.
Yeah, that new look midfield does put me off a tad in terms of time to settle in. Like, I was looking at it today thinking, who starts game week 1 in that midfield 3, knowing Trent will be right back but move inverted? We've still got to occupy 3 midfield slots. And if Szoboszlai's fit, he's in, McAllister's in, then I think it might be Curtis Jones alongside him, who had a really good summer. But that midfield 3 it still seems to lack, it lacks a Fabinho type. It lacks maybe a Henderson leadership type. So I am curious as to see how that midfield 3 sort of balances out. Obviously, they're still in the market for a midfielder, though.
Yeah, I mean, Trent's not a 6 and he's not playing that. It definitely was the inverted fullback the other night. He started at right back and then tucked inside, similar to what we've seen with Cancelo for City and Zinchenko for Arsenal. Yeah. And I think that change, we saw the Salah data just rocket as soon as Trent took up that position. Yeah. And I think he's looking for Darwin to capitalise on those through balls that Trent will no doubt be playing. And Darwin over Hakpo, I think it makes sense.
Do you think Darwin steals some of Salah's big chances, be it by the very nature of the positions he occupies and by being in the team? Because it's not a number 9 that does the Bobby thing or does the Hakpo thing. It's a number 9 that will make some similar runs, albeit from a different area of the pitch. to Salah. And I just think back to times last year when I bought Darwin, I'm pretty sure it was off the back of going, Salah's chance shot volume is down off the back of Darwin being in the team. So that'll be interesting to monitor too.
Yeah, it will be. I think the idea is that Darwin will stretch and push defences back because they won't want to leave gaps in behind. So I guess the idea then Salah would capitalise on a bit more space around the area, come in from the wing. He's going to be on the flank more. I think we saw this at the start of the season. This is one of the reasons why I didn't go Salah at the start of the season. I fully expected Salah to take up more of a wide role with Darwin in the side. And I think we will see that, particularly with Trent tucked inside, because then Salah has the run of that right flank. But I don't know if that will curtail Salah's returns. I still think that they'll just generate more chances, Liverpool. And out of the sheer volume of shots that Salah will get, I think he'll do just as well. So, yeah, it's scary, that Bournemouth game, isn't it? I don't know. If we don't have Trent and Salah, Darwin is so tempting if we think he starts that game. Because of the fixture, and we're presuming they're gonna smash Bournemouth. I don't think they will, but I think it's a home win, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm with you there. It was remarkable last season. I know it was under a different manager. Was it just before Scott Parker got sacked, the 9-0?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely going to have FOMO watching that one if Darwin goes big or if Jota goes big, because perhaps he's another one we're sleeping on. Obviously listed as a midfielder, Jota, so not part of this conversation. The fixtures there, a couple of eagle-eyed guys in the chat, well pointed out. It's not Crystal Palace game week 1, it is Chelsea. And then Nkunku and Jackson, I think Nkunku's fixtures are right, but Jackson is listed as Arsenal fixtures. He's obviously got the same fixtures as Nkunku. For me, Mark, the best Chelsea asset straight away, that Chilwell, that Reece James. Like, if you're going to invest Chelsea game week 1, maybe even if you're looking for a 4.5 defender, Colwill, who I think started, I'm happy just to wait a week or two on these two. Are you tempted by either, or do you think if you're going to go that price point, it's straight to Darwin?
I am tempted by it in Nkunku, but I'd have to be playing 3 up front, I think. It depends. I mean, if Darwin turns up for both the remaining friendlies that Liverpool got left, I don't think I'll be able to resist going in with him for game week 1. And if I do that, I've then got to decide, do I play 3 up front and keep Jesus, or do I change things around and try and get another Arsenal mid in there? Maybe for Bruno, who's currently in my team. I think I would. If I'm going for Darwin and then Nkunku and I'm keeping 2 up front, obviously it'll be one of them with Haaland, then I think I'd want another Arsenal attacker, because like you're going 3 attackers, right? I wouldn't want to go in with just one Arsenal attacker. I definitely want 2.
Yeah.
So I probably would have to decide between Odegaard and Martinelli for that spot if I was to go in Nkunku or Darwin instead of Jesus.
Yeah, when you look at those 3 Arsenal fixtures, I can't look at those 3 fixtures and think I could even contemplate one. And I look at it and think I'm struggling settling on 2, that I have to have all 3, because sure, Gabriel at centre-back's a nice option, but there's other defenders that can cover those 6-pointers. And I look at Forest, Palace and Fulham and think there's a 4 or 5-0 in there. Just maybe.
I wonder which game.
I remember thinking it in game week 38, which is why I captioned Jesus, because when the pressure's off Arsenal, when the weather's nice, the pressure's off, the fixture's easy, the crowd are supportive. We saw last season how they started the year. I think there's a big scoreline or 2 coming up.
Wow.
And I think the Fulham game also, with Mitrovic going, questions about the manager.
Yeah.
I want tickets to that draw.
Have you seen them pre-season Arsenal as well? Because I mean, I've watched
5 against. They scored 5 against Barcelona, the best defense in Europe last season.
And the thing is, I mean, I've been watching Forest pre-season. It's all about, it's not the result that counts, and we're trying to get fitness minutes in the legs. And I watched Arsenal play, and it's like they haven't been away at all. It's like, they look fresh. They look razor sharp.
Yeah,
the passing, the fluidity. Havertz has just dropped into the Xhaka role. It's just seamless. Everything seems they seem to be, as you probably would expect under Arteta, this well-oiled machine who know exactly how to play and know exactly how they want to play. Saka looking every bit as inventive and as influential as last season. I'm really worried for Forest because we're going to go in with injuries at the back. I don't think we're going to go in prepared. We're not. Our 11 that we put out in that game won't be anywhere near the 11 that we end up playing a few months later, because we've got players to get in yet. Whereas Arsenal, settled, it's done and dusted. We know their best 11, if Rice is in it, looks absolutely daunting. So I think that a 3 or 4 goals against Forest is certainly a possibility, sadly.
Yeah. There's been a few questions in the chat, and I've had it when sort of revealing my team. Martinelli's been in my team pretty much since like the first week, and I'm fairly set on him, Jesus and Saka. Should we worry about Trossard getting minutes? Because I keep saying, look, I'll eat my hat if Martinelli doesn't start game week 1. I did one of those eat my hats, which I think, been forced to eat once, but usually they're fairly accurate. Like Trossard for me is just sub 1. Like he is a brilliant sub to put on for Jesus, for Martinelli, even now for Havertz or whoever's playing in that Xhaka number 8 role. We've seen him scored a brace the other day from playing that position. So Martinelli feels safe in terms of starts. Sure, he might come off at 70, 80. Feels safe in terms of starts early on, right?
I think so. I'd rather have Odegaard. I would say Saka and Odegaard over Martinelli. Yeah, I think so. I think Odegaard could get subbed as well. I mean, obviously there's Smith Rowe, there's Vieira who can play that role too. So he's I think of the three, the players most likely to get withdrawn before 90 minutes, it goes Saka's more likely to get the 90, then Odegaard, then Martinelli. I think Martinelli will be. I think if I own Martinelli and he hasn't done anything and there's an hour gone, you'd be fidgeting. That's the thing, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Whereas Odegaard as the captain, you would think would get 80 most games. I think he will. So that's the only reason. I just don't like the anxiety of owning a player that you know if they've done nothing with an hour gone, you're looking every time you're looking to see if the subs are warming up, aren't you? It's horrible.
Yeah, Bill Leary in the chat. Hello, Chasers from New Jersey Airport, waiting for my flight. Mark, last time, I think we've probably seen each other once or twice since then, but we were at New Jersey Airport together, weren't we? Not that long ago.
Yeah. Oh, what times that was. We all had COVID.
Yeah, we didn't know it.
Rightly, and we didn't know it. Yeah, but those two days that we had in New York were fantastic, and
that was good fun.
Yeah, some great times. Yeah.
And we've got Fest, guys, for all of you watching. If you are in the UK or can get to the UK next Friday, so a week on Friday, the 11th, for game week 1 for the deadline, we will be at Fantasy Football Fest, Mark and myself. And Mark will be doing a live Black Box show with Az as well. And you guys are all, I'm sure, subscribed to FPL Black Box. But look, let's move on to some of the more budget strikers, because if we do change formation and go 3-4-3, there's a very good chance that third forward will be a budget forward. It will be a 5.5. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Calvert-Lewin and probably not Ferguson anymore, because I think the preseason minutes suggest that we know even if Ferguson is a starter game week 1, we'll see a lot of rotation. And Welbeck seems quite fancied in the 9 and maybe João Pedro in the 10. So let's talk Welbeck and João Pedro. I've mentioned I want bites at the cherry for Arsenal, tickets to the draw, which is why I'm going triple attack. I've got Estupinan, I've got Matoma. We pretty much all have. I think with these 3 fixtures, João Pedro as a double Brighton attack might be the play. And I'm really tempted to change my formation to accommodate that third Brighton player. And I think João Pedro is going to be on pens as well. Gross wasn't on the pitch when Pedro took his pen pre-season, but Gross's record, he's missed 3 of 8 in the for Brighton. Like 3 of 8 is a poor conversion rate. Pedro wasn't first taker at Watford, I don't think, but I think he's got maybe 3 from 3 and scored one the other day. Mayman, 30 million signing. What do you think to João Pedro, Mark?
Yeah, I really like him. We try not to build too much into the pre-season, of course, but you can't help but be impressed with what you've seen from João Pedro, and I think De Zerbi is as well. And I think at the moment it's his shirt to lose, but Welbeck and Ferguson are obviously there. Undav has departed on loan, but he's still a risk, I think, because it's a bit like the Martinelli situation that, he's got to do something in the first hour. Otherwise, one of those two will be warming up and replacing him. And then, if Welbeck or Ferguson take their chances, then perhaps they get to start over him the next game. So there's always that going to be in the back of your mind. But if he's someone you can bring in and he enables you to go Salah or enables you to go Trent, and he can be part of a bench in games where you're not certain he's going to start, then at 5.5, he could be great. I think he's got it in him to own the shirt and keep it. Right? I think he's good enough. And I think the way Brighton play, he's going to get chances. For me, he's got that little bit extra on Welbeck. He's got the pace and he's got the running off the ball. But I think he's slightly tidier in the link play. He's slightly cleverer with his touches. I think he suits De Zerbi's style well. He likes those, the little flicks and the intricacy of the play. that I think João Pedro brings over Welbeck. Ferguson obviously is a different animal. He gives them something extra. He gives them a bit of a target man, a bit of an outball. So I think it's between Welbeck and João Pedro to start. Ferguson, has he had any minutes yet? I don't think he has yet pre-season, has he?
I think he came on. I saw him come on. I did see him come on in one of the games, and I saw him score an amazing free kick on their social media in training. But yeah, he's lack of minutes for sure. Like Welbeck and João Pedro, definitely the two that have had the minutes, and two together, it might be 1-9, 1-10. Lallana's played the 10. We've seen Enciso get a few minutes out wide, which was interesting because again, like when if Enciso's likely to start for Brighton, you think it's more likely to be fairly central in the 10, but Enciso's minutes, I think, were fairly wide. I think they're out left, which was interesting. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I just look at De Zerbi, Mark, and I know like you and Az are obviously like talk about De Zerbi quite a bit with Az being a Brighton fan and love him. But look at the players he's worked with at Brighton, and a lot of them are like they're past their best or they're not big names. He's just signed a £30 million forward. He's gonna have fun with him. I think João Pedro is going to be an amazing pick. I think we'll all be looking at him after a week or two, or maybe even after Luton game week 1, game week 2. Think about, do we need to try and accommodate this guy because he's really exploded? But at the same time, I know it's game week 1. Calm down. Just see him play. Just watch it. Give him a couple of weeks. But it's just those first 3 fixtures, and then actually from game week 4, Brighton have got a couple of tricky ones. So it's a tough one.
It is tough. One thing I will say, and we said this on Black Box, is if you build a profile of the kind of player that accelerates in price early in the season, it's normally a player like a 5.5 striker who does well, right? So the scenario is if João Pedro gets a couple of goals or even a goal, any form of return against Luton, and gets man of the match or gets 3 bonus points, the bandwagon's going to be strong because of the price, right? So you're going to get a lot of people moving off Jesus to get João Pedro so they can get the money to get maybe a Bruno or Salah even in midfield or Trent in defence, right? So the risk is if you don't go João Pedro and he does bang against Luton, he will be a bandwagon, and then you've got a choice to make. It's like, most people will want to save a transfer and take 2 into game week 3. If you do that, João Pedro could be 5-7, 5-8 by the time game week 3 is over, right? So if you don't get him, you've got to be wary of that scenario, because with that Luton fixture, you'd expect Brighton to get a couple of goals at least, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I just can't. With their recruitment policy, Brighton, they don't spend big money. To spend 30 million, this guy's surely going to have the team built around him. And then he's gone and backed it up with good pre-season form. But they've got one more friendly left to monitor. But I am so tempted the more I talk about him. Any others here you would look at, Mark? Like, what about Visser? You've got Mboma in your team, have you, at the moment?
I have at the moment. I mean, a lot of people are moving away from Brentford. Visser didn't start the friendly, did he?
No. So, wasn't on the pitch for the penalty either.
No. So I thought he was a good option at 6 million as an alternative to Mbeumo if you're not going him. But I think I prefer João Pedro. I'd rather take a punt on João Pedro, I think. Obviously, for me, Brentford have got to get used to playing without Tony again. And yes, they've scored goals in pre-season, fine, but it's very different when you start the action proper. Spurs at home is a good fixture. We can see what they're made of in that game. I don't think they're going to get too much traffic because there's going to be other bright lights that are going to draw our attention. So it's whether or not you go with a Brentford player initially. For me, Mbeumo edges it because I think he's got the more secure starts. He's got the set pieces and potentially the penalties. So Visser, for me, just gets nudged out of the reckoning because of the likes of João Pedro who's come into form.
Yeah, massively agree with that. I saw someone in the chat to say, what about Darwin? Charles, you'll have to go back and watch because we have done a section on 7 to 8 million forwards, and Darwin got a lot of airtime. But look, that probably draws our comparison to a conclusion. It's now time, I think, to focus on you guys, answer some questions, but also have a look at the Chaser team that you've been building. Make sure during the next sting, you've got 5 seconds to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But next up, we've got the Chaser team in Pimp My Team. I hope you're subscribing, guys. There's loads of new people around here tonight because Mark's on. So do hit that subscribe button. Thank you for supporting the channel. Mark, this team has changed loads. Ignore Areola in the 11 and Onana on the bench. It would be Onana in the 11. just before someone in the chat points that out. I'm sure loads of you will. This team has been voted by the chasers in the chat. We've made a formation change. We've made personnel change. At the time, I think we had Gabriel in at Arsenal at centre-back. Then we went to 3 Arsenal attack. Foden's come in. I think Mbomo's left the team. Trent was in and then out. Looking at this team, what do you think to it? Like, it's pretty well stocked. It's fairly template, but it's got Chilwell. It's got triple Arsenal attack, triple City. Do you like it?
I do. I mean, at the moment, if I look at the 11, 9 of those are in my team at the moment. I haven't got Martinelli and I haven't got Foden. But other than that, I've got those other players there. I don't think there's arguments against many of these picks. Jesus, as we spoke about, is there perhaps as a placeholder for a move in game week 3 or even 2 if you fancy Darwin. I think that makes sense at the moment, unless we see Darwin start the next 2 friendlies. I think that's the route that most will go down, and the one I would endorse. Matoma gives you the Brighton cover for the Luton game. I think you've got to have some, so that makes sense. Rashford and Saka will be mainstays, I would have thought, all season. I can't see them. I just, unless Bruno absolutely bangs over Rashford and we move to Bruno, I see Rashford and Saka being permanent. Estupiñán, I think for the first 2 or 3 game weeks, and then you start to bring in even people like Pedro Porro, maybe, if he settles well and offers attacking potential. Stones, the best Man City defender, so that makes sense. You could double on Man City defence, I guess, and go Ake if you really wanted to over Estupiñán. And Chilwell's come into fashion, hasn't he, the last few weeks? And he's showing so much in the friendlies. Again, you don't want to read into the form, but it's the way he's getting forward. The frequency of his presence in the attack suggests that he's going to be a real force in the defence for us this season. And he was strong last season when he actually did get on the pitch. Yeah. You know, his points per 90 were high, 4.47. His goal involvement was the best among all defenders in FBL. 31% of goals he was involved in when on the pitch. And he started the preseason indicating that he's going to be a factor. So I'm struggling, apart from the Foden and Martinelli pick. So I guess there's X-Min's questions over those 2.
Yeah, that's a fair point. By pure coincidence, Mark, I didn't want to tell you this before I asked you to give your opinion. By pure coincidence, this is my 11. Ignore the bench. My bench is different and this bench will change. But with Onana in goal, this is currently my 11 that I've been on for a few days. And the one nagging doubt I have about this 11, and we're going to put it to a poll to see if the chat want to maybe change things, is if I went 3-4-3 to accommodate, do I go 3-4-3 to accommodate João Pedro? Which seems crazy because it's just a 5.5 million forward. But I can't help but think Brighton, game week 1, 2, and 3, I need more than just Matoma in attack. But if I go 3-4-3, I need to sacrifice someone in the midfield to accommodate 5.5 instead of 4.5 forward. So it'd be, say, Martinelli that goes, and then I can go to a 6.5 million midfielder. And the 6.5 million mid I'd go to in a heartbeat is Moussa Diaby of Aston Villa. I've been super impressed with him. His numbers last season, Mark, I know he was playing in the German league. I know it's the Bundesliga. But his numbers, I looked on FB Ref, the sorts of wide forwards he compares to, and the list in terms of all of his stats, not just his shooting, like all of his stats. Number 1, Mo Salah. I think number 2 was Vinicius Jr.
I saw this.
And Martinelli was in there. Martinelli was in there. Martinelli was a 6.5 midfielder last year, started the season, and he was probably one of the 3 best players in the game. And Diaby could, if he produces anywhere near Martinelli last season, could be incredible for Villa. And he scored 2 in 2 pre-season, which obviously has turned my head a little bit.
I think like they wanted him over Bailey originally, didn't they? And they couldn't afford him at the time. So they ended up getting Bailey from the same team. And Bailey, if you remember, we were flirting with him this time last season, weren't we?
I picked him. Yeah.
And I think the difference between Bailey and Diaby, there are probably many, but the one that stands out for me is finishing. If you look at the record that Diaby brings from the Bundesliga, he's overachieved his XG for the last couple of seasons. I've done quite a bit of reading on him, and he fascinates me. And the only concern for me, you're moving too early for him. Is there any question that that he will struggle to settle? The pre-season indicates not, but as I said before, pre-season is not a full indication. But we want to get on Villa, I think. And the issue is if you can't get on Watkins, Diaby is the way in, isn't he?
Yeah.
And arguably Diaby could turn out to be the most profitable option of the two anyway, right? So I'm with you. I think Eze's the other one. Eze,
yes. Did you see his goal yesterday?
Yeah. Again, I don't want to be swayed by that, but there's no question that he's their talisman now that Zaha's left the club, and he was outstanding in the second half of the season, and he could be on penalties as well. That 6.5 price. It's just a Palace attacker, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I struggle to get used to having a Palace attacker, especially when it's not Zaha.
Yeah, regular co-host Dean Jones, who has been in the chat tonight. Dean thinks Fulham will resort to type under Roy Hodgson and be again like back to fairly defensive, clean sheets, little bit boring. And the fact he was just on that kind of short-term gig at the end of last season was like, yeah, go have some fun. But to start the season, he thinks they might go a little bit backwards. But maybe without Zaha, they'll lack something. But pre-season, Mark, you're so right to keep saying like it is just pre-season, because I see myself get massively carried away with it, and I have to keep reminding myself that's probably why this draft won't go to Diaby and Pedro instead of Martinelli and whoever. But the fact they're playing Premier League team versus Premier League team in the summer series, and Aston Villa, for example, had Brentford and Newcastle, does that mean it matters a little bit more because it's Premier League team versus Premier League team?
We can be forgiven for being swayed, I think, is right. Because the other thing is I've been watching the games and I've been astonished at how the pace and the commitment being shown in the games is like, it's like the Premier League season has just continued or started early. So, yes, you can be forgiven by being swayed by what we've seen because of the opposition and the tempo and intensity of the games. But I don't know. The unwritten rule is you don't take a chance on a new player to the Premier League from the off. You always wait and see. And arguably when Villa go to Newcastle, that's a game where you can wait and see because we're not expecting too many goals in that game. We'll see, but famous last words. But I'm not. I think it'll be a tight game, maybe a 1-1 or 1-0 either way. Yeah. But Diaby, fascinates me. And I think you're right. I think when I got asked the other day, who do I think is underpriced? And I said probably the most underpriced potentially is Darwin at 7.5. Could end up being a 10 million or even more by the end of the season, given what he's capable of doing in the Liverpool team. I think you got to look at Diaby and think he could also be massively underpriced. He could easily justify by the end of the season. We could be looking at him going, he's going to be an 8.5, 9 million player next season. So that's in my back of my mind as well.
Yeah. I was looking at it. Game week 1, I'd have Pedro in the starting 11 in a front 3. Diaby would be first sub, but then it would be every week. It'd either be Diaby or a Brighton attacker in the 11 if I'm playing with a back 3. Definitely one to consider, but I think I'll probably end up very close to the team on screen, which is also the chaser team. So guys, if you want to make a change tonight, we can do that, but we will be making a change if you say yes to agreeing a new formation. So do you want to stick with 3-5-2 or do you want to move to 3-4-3? That is the first question. Tell you what, if you do say 3-5-2, we'll still consider a change. So I don't want that to sway you. So we'll put a poll up, 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, and we'll see where you guys land. We want you to build this team. We'll be changing the armband every week. This is going to be an active team that I'm convinced is going to be me and Dean this season. And to make sure we're aligned with FPL rules, this is our producers team. This isn't my team. It's not my second team, which I've never had. I've never had, my dog's team or my wife's team. But this gives me that little, in fact, it gives everyone in the chat that little opportunity to have that slightly different team. And I think we're going to make some road captain shouts because of it. Because it's like, we've all got Haaland anyway. Who shall we captain? Let's go Saka game week 1, for example.
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
You should do it on Black Box, Mark. I know you did similar with your apprentices, didn't you? Which was great. It was good to see their decisions.
Yeah, we got the apprentice again this season, and I've always got Billy. I always encourage Billy to experiment, apart from then when he starts beating me.
Last season.
Every season he's going to take it a bit more seriously, I think. So we'll see what he does this season. I'll try and coax him into taking some risks.
Yeah, do. At the moment, it's pretty split, but 3-4-3 is leading, and I think that's just because there's loads that want to go rogue. So if we're doing 3-4-3, I guess the next question will be which midfielder are we selling before we even look at the forward. I mean, if we're the two vulnerable midfielders for me here are Foden and Martinelli, right? Like everyone is pretty sold on Saka, Rashford, and Matoma. Yeah. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think what you would do there is you would do Foden to Darwin.
Yeah, I like that. Foden to Darwin does feel good. And we've got 0.5 in the bank if we ever needed it. But yeah, I don't think we do there.
But then you're going to need a 4-5 midfielder, right? So where do you go there? Is there a 5 million midfielder you'd want? Probably not. No. So there are 4 or 5 options that are going to play. Yeah, Anderson will get minutes, won't he? He's not a regular star. Depends what you want from your 4 or 5. If you think you're going to call on him, I mean, Archer's in your team and he's going to be your third sub. So you could say that this midfielder could be your third sub. Therefore, you could go anyone, couldn't you? But
yeah,
you could go someone who's just going to play every game rather than someone who's going to be an Anderson and probably get fewer minutes but more points. So it's difficult, isn't it? That I think at the moment I think Darwin's a no-go until we see the last couple of friendlies, but it's really tempting, isn't it?
Yeah, I massively am tempted with that number 9 shirt as well. Mark says 5 million Cliver. Yeah, maybe. I think he did well on loan was he back in the Dutch league last year? But when he moved to Roma, he was really bad. Couldn't get a look in. But maybe this will be what he needs a new club in the UK, and he'll hit the ground running. Haley says Foden to Nakamba. All right, so we're gonna go with 3-4-3. We might not make all the changes tonight, but let's just see who we're selling in midfield before we look at what forward. So we'll do a poll. Do we sell Foden or Martinelli? Oh, the poll vote was 50% one way, 49% the other. I don't know how that works. What happened to the 1%? There was 81 votes. Okay, so yeah, it must have been 41-40. Okay, so yeah, who do we sell, Foden or Martinelli? Mark, do you just have Haaland in terms of City attack?
I do, yeah. I have Haaland and Stones.
Does that scare you a little bit?
No, I don't think there's going to be. I think the Arsenal mids and the United mids will outscore the City mids for me, just because of minutes and rotation. So obviously, if you get Foden over the right spell, he could be the best player to own in that bracket. But it's getting him over the right spell, and you haven't got those concerns when it comes to Rashford, Bruno, Saka, in the same way, because you know they're going to start all games, I would say. So I think it's a wait and see on the City midfield to see who comes out of that. And Foden is always someone who makes his way into my team eventually, because I end up getting scared of him, but not at the start.
Yeah. I was delighted to see he was on free kicks yesterday, and I think corners from one side. I think Grealish was one side, Foden the other. But obviously that's without De Bruyne on the pitch. I think we have to put Matoma in this poll. The chat are all saying Matoma. You guys are crazy. So if we want to, okay, our producer's on the right lines. He's already done it. Who do we sell, Foden, Martinelli, or Matoma? We'll let you guys pick. I feel fairly comfortable with Matoma. We haven't spoken about Rashford, Mark. Pre-season, he hasn't played a huge amount. He hasn't been getting the goals. Worried is the wrong word. He was amazing last year. But with Bruno at 8.5, I know you've got both, and a lot have got both, so it's not really a dilemma. But for someone like me and for this team, is it a foregone conclusion? You just spend the extra 0.5, knowing also Bruno does have pens, or do you back the guy that just smashed it last year and is higher up the pitch, closer to the goal?
For me, I think Rashford, he ended the season really strongly. I looked at the games. I looked at the stats from game week 30 onwards, because I was looking at Trent and what happened to Liverpool from game week 30, because that's when Trent moved in. And I went and looked at the midfielders, expecting Salah to be top of the midfielders for XGI non-penalty per 90 over those last 10 game weeks, or 8 game weeks rather. And he wasn't. Rashford was above him. So over his last 6 starts from game week 30 onwards, he got 0.80 XGI non-penalty. He only got 2 goals and 3 assists in those 6 starts, which is a good return. Yeah. But he was clearly on it right to the very end of the season. And all I've seen in pre-season is Rashford looking fitter and meaner. And, if I was a defender, there's no way I want to be facing Rashford, because he just looks absolutely lean. He looks like he's exuding pace before he's even got on the pitch. So, yeah, I think his finishing improved last season. I think he really impressed me in terms of his composure and his ability to score all types of goals. And, with Højlund coming in, is that going to create more space for him? Is it going to mean more assists? I think Højlund's going to stretch teams because of his pace down the middle, and I think that is only going to create space for Bruno, Rashford, and Mount. So, I think you go. I think you go with Rashford for the. I think it would be folly not to, because his ownership's going to be incredibly high as well.
Yeah, those fixtures, they've got two. When we look at the Brighton first three and the United first three, they do share the fact they play two of the same teams. And it's the two homes, I guess. Wolves at home, Forest at home. Could be big-ish score lines.
Yeah.
Matoma looks like he's gone, guys. Matoma has left the team. I'm really surprised at that.
Wow.
54% wanted Matoma gone, 19 Martinelli, and 27% wanted Foden gone. So
now we've only got 7 to spend, though.
But we do have 0.5 in the bank. No, we do have Botman on the bench who could go down to a 4.0, I guess.
Yes.
We could have two 4.0s, which I do feel like this Chaser team might be one of those teams that just puts all the money in the 11.
So you could go, another Bulldog, couldn't you? You could go a 4 million defender,
Yeah. Bulldog or Kabore has caught my eye. The Luton signing. I did a bit of research on Kabore. I don't know if you've had time to look at this yet, Mark, but he played 4 times in the Champions League for Marseille last season, and he obviously plays wing back or right back. He's comfortable in either, but owned by Man City still. So those Man City kids often are pretty useful.
He's going to be one. I mean, I think the thing with Bulldog, he is playing and he is a wing back, right? And I guess, do we think Sheffield United will be a bit stronger defensively? Probably.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, he's been there, done it, hasn't he? I remember Edna Stevens and Bulldog were pretty popular that first season. Sheffield United came up. All right, well let's poll. We'll give Darwin as an option. We'll find the money. So we should do what? Darwin and Nkunku and João Pedro as 3 options.
Yep.
They feel like the big 3, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do indeed, yeah.
Let's go with those 3 and see who you chasers want. Darwin, Nkunku or João Pedro, and we'll work the rest out in the next show. But yeah, loads of new faces in the chat, Mark. You've definitely brought a new crowd to the channel tonight. So if you're new around here, make sure you're subscribing. What are your plans with Black Box preseason, Mark? When are you guys next on?
Well, as he's doing a show on Friday with his new apprentice, so I might pop in and do that. We're going to do at least. I want to do at least 2 more shows before the live at Fest. So we've got so much to look at. I mean, at the same time, you want to do more pre-season stuff, but you don't want to do too much content before you get to the final week, because the final week is where you've got the most information, isn't it? And about new players,
Shield as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we might try and do 2 shows and the Fest on Friday. That could be stretching it, but I have got the week off work, so you never know. I might go rogue and do a solo stream at some point on that final week. So look out. You
definitely should. Definitely should. I think that Community Shield game, which is I think Sunday at 4:00 UK time. If there is I don't know, let's say Trossard starts instead of Martinelli, or Foden scores a hat trick, or our heads are going to be turned in that. There'll be one big headline coming out of that Community Shield where I think template might be changed. So I'm looking forward to that. Who do we pick then? Darwin and Nkunku or João Pedro? Don't worry about the money. We'll find the cash. I'm going to vote. Actually, I'm not going to say I'm going to vote, but I'm going to vote. Currently, Darwin is leading 52%.
I'll be in it. It's got to be.
Yeah, number 9 shirt as well. I love the narrative.
I think all FPL managers want Darwin to be a thing, right? And I actually think Klopp wants Darwin to be a thing as well for the same reasons. He bought a centre forward. At some point, I said I was talking to Luke, aka Disable on WhatsApp. I was saying at some point, Klopp's got to go all in on Darwin, hasn't he? He's got to back him. He's got to give him that run of starts and let him miss chances and keep him in the team. Yeah. And I think the signs are it could be coming, but we need to see these last 2 friendlies and see what happens. But we all want it, don't we? Because Darwin in our teams is going to be such a thrill, isn't it? Because he's going to get 4 or 5 shots a game. Liverpool going to create loads, and you want some cover for that Bournemouth game in particular.
Big chance hogger. I love big chance hoggers. And you could argue Jota, even when Jota plays on the left, he seems to, big chances can fall his way too. But yeah, Darwin does feel like the one if you're gonna pick between the 2, and he's even cheaper than Jota, 7.5. All right. I think we're going to go Darwin in then. So guys, for the next stream on Friday, we'll show you what this team looks like with Darwin in. We'll put a question mark over that Matoma spot, and we'll look to fill it with a 4.5. We'll look to replace Botman and that bench as well. But yeah, Darwin got 49% of the vote. Only 16% of you wanted João Pedro and to spend a bit of money elsewhere. But I think he might be an early season bandwagon, as we spoke about earlier. Mark, final thoughts. I just want to ask you about captaincy. If you own Salah game week 2, for me, it's you've committed to Salah, you've got to captain him. But outside of game week 2, when we look at the first, I don't know, 6 weeks, I think we can probably show the fixtures now actually on screen. When you look at them, do you see yourself going against Haaland much in the first 6 weeks?
Yeah, we looked at this when we were looking at Salah, the possibility of having Salah, and it is, apart from game week 2, there's game week 10, I think, where Liverpool play Forest, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they do. They're at home to Forest game week 10. It's really, even going against Haaland in the Newcastle game in game week 2 is a risk, you could say, given that he's scored hat-tricks against the very best opposition. So you've got to, if you go in Salah, you've got to captain in game week 2. But then looking at those other fixtures, Villa at home is not going to be an easy game.
Yeah.
Wolves away has been difficult for Liverpool in the past. I'm not sure it will be as much this season. West Ham at home, don't know what we're going to get from Moyes' side. They've got Europe as distraction again, haven't they? So we'll see how that affects them. I guess, this is the thing about having Salah, is that to justify it, you've got to put the armband on him at least 1 in 3, 1 in 4, haven't you? And I don't think you're doing that. I don't think you're doing that.
That's why we didn't buy Harry Kane last year.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We felt like if we were buying him and spending that money, we were going to have to give him the armband. And we didn't want to go against Haaland, which does limit your other premiums. Not because they're not worth their money per se, but it's when you add in that armband conversation. A Haaland injury, not that I'd wish injury on anyone, would be loads of fun at some point.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I don't think, even a run of 2 or 3 games without scoring is going to dent our confidence, is it? I think this is the question that we'd have to ask ourselves. What will it take to not captain Haaland? And Salah at home to Bournemouth is probably about it. But even that, we're like, bit of a risk. So it's crazy, isn't it? Right. I think, you look at the fixtures here, Man United, Rashford's got Forest in game week 3. If Forest start as I expect, people might look at Rashford in game week 3, possibly over Haaland away at Sheffield United. Haaland away, even though it is a promoted team, Haaland away wasn't as particularly potent as he was at home, but that's because he was absolutely devastating at home. So he can still obviously rout Sheffield United there. So that would be a risk. But if you really want to go different, then again, the weeks where you want to back against Haaland are the weeks where there's going to be a split in the ownership in the community. You don't want to be going against Haaland when the EO is 180%, which it will be a lot of weeks, I think.
Yeah, delighted to see, Mark. In the chat, we have last season's winner, FPL Guns, Ali Yahangarov. Ali, you've missed it. You came way too late. You're going to have to go back and watch. But I know you're on a very busy schedule at the moment, Ali, because you have your book out tomorrow, How to Win FPL, which I'm very excited to, I was going to say excited to read, but I don't think it's a secret. I've read Ali's book already, and I'm delighted to have written the forward for that. So, guys, make sure you check out FPL Guns on Twitter. At some point, if it's not tomorrow, it'll be Wednesday. He'll be promoting the link to his book, which is incredible. And Mark, you analysed it on Black Box. The way Ali played last season was pretty unique, like completely in his just tunnel vision to do his own thing. FOMO didn't really matter, made some road choices and still won FPL by going actually against the template a lot.
Yeah, you have to, I think. I think we've seen in previous seasons as well that there is a point where you have to be brave and go against the majority and take some risks, and he just got that right, and that's what it takes to win FPL. But he was a consistent performer before that as well. This isn't someone who had a lucky season. Obviously there is luck involved, you need luck to win it, but he is also a performer who's ranked well in previous seasons too, so he knew how to go about things, and it just fell for him as well. So he had the technique, he had the strategy, and the luck fell in as well. And hopefully, people who buy the book will be able to get an insight into his way of playing. Obviously, it's success, and we'll see how he performs this season. And I often wondered, do you often think, what would you do when you win it, if you win it, and then the following season, how you would approach that? It must be very difficult for motivation, mustn't it? But I guess, I don't know if anyone will ever win 2 seasons running off. Surely that's going to be impossible. But if he got a top 100 finish, that would be outstanding, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And finishing 215th the season before, a 215 and then a 1 is just so. Yeah, if you get anywhere near the top 100 again, like unbelievable, Ali. Definitely for me, one of the world's best ever managers. And Mark, don't want to make you blush, mate, but I put you in that category as well. But look, that is
I need a good season this season to make that happen, be true. But yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks for that, Johnny.
Form is temporary, mate. Class is permanent.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. That's all we got time for tonight. If you've enjoyed tonight's stream, though, please do hit the like button and subscribe to Chasing Green Arrows. Follow Mark on social. We will see you on Friday when Dean will be back. But for now, he's been Dean, I've been Janny, and we've been Chasing Green Arrows.